Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? We're back to looking at one of the best comics of the mid-90s somehow. And by somehow, I mean that Jim Lee paid Alan Moore to write Wildcats when nobody else would for some reason, resulting in Wildcats all of a sudden becoming an enjoyable read for like the first time ever. So we're taking a look today at Wildcats number 24. And speaking of the best comics, this is my chance to remind you that the Blood Force Kickstarter is going to be coming up soon. We're getting closer to the pre-launch. As soon as I can figure out Photoshop and maybe get a video together, we should be able to get that thing up and running. No, I'm kidding. I'm figuring it out as I go here. Blood Force number 1 will be available as a physical copy very shortly, just as soon as we launch and hopefully make our goal. It'll be available with 3, potentially 4 covers. You'll be able to get your chance to buy some of the original artwork to Blood Force number 1, including those covers. And if you miss out on those, there's going to be some Blood Force prints available. So all the Blood Force stuff you could hope to lay your hands on. I'll keep you guys updated here when we're ready to go. So back to Wildcats. Yeah, this is turning out to be quite an enjoyable run by Alan Moore. Started out with Alan Moore and Travis Charest, which is, like about as good as you're going to get, really. Travis Charest, of course, couldn't keep up for very long, because that's not really how he rolls, He can do an issue, and then, maybe 2-3 months later, he can do another one. And in the meantime, you got to keep pumping out those comics. So we've had a slew of fill-in artists on this. This is the same team as last time, so we're going to get Alan Moore splitting the story into 2 parts. We've got the original Wildcats team, and that's going to be drawn by Ryan Benjamin, and the new Wildcats team, the home team perhaps, and that one's going to be penciled by Jason Johnson. Both are inked by Tom McWeeny. And what's been going on in Wildcats is that the original team has found itself back on the Khera homeworld. They're starting to learn that the war that they've been fighting for all of these year or 2, maybe, has actually been over for centuries. And now they're having to adjust to, living life on an alien planet, which seems at first to be kind of a paradise, but they're learning that there's trouble in paradise. Imagine that. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the replacement Wildcats are taking a proactive approach to fighting, whoever they were fighting before, really. They took out Harm in the last issue, and this time they're going to escalate. So let's get into this. We can start with the cover. We get another Travis Charest cover focusing on a single character. That's always nice. This time it's Maul. We're going to try and care about Maul, everybody. It's a pretty good looking cover. Maul is going to have a fair amount of focus in this issue. I don't believe he ever hides behind a partition in the issue itself, but that's okay. No, but really, I don't know what the design here is supposed to be exactly. It does look nice, and it does give Travis Charest a little less to draw, which has kind of been the thing we've been seeing from Travis Charest for the last few issues, really, starting with issue number 22, and that was the Ladytron cover. He's been doing a nice big single image of a character in particular, and he's been managing to find a way to do it that probably doesn't take up a whole lot of time. Like in this case, these designs, yeah, they're pretty simple to draw, and they take up probably about half the cover, and the rest of it is largely in shadow. It's good-looking shadow, at least. We get Maul all backlit. I'm not sure what's going on with his teeth exactly. Those appear to be the upper teeth. Almost looks like they should be the lower ones. But, hey, it's pretty cool. It's not one of the most designy covers that we've seen from Travis Charest, but it's a nice-looking one anyway. Oh, apparently there's a Wildcats Super Nintendo game coming out soon. I don't know that happened, but let me take a look at that. Yeah, it looks like it did. Looks like it was a pretty standard side-scrolling beat-em-up kind of game, kind of in the vein of like Final Fight, Double Dragon, one of the Ninja Turtle games. There were a few Ninja Turtle games. I'm talking about one of the ones where you didn't have to swim underwater and maybe get electrified by bullshit. Alright, so let's get into the story here. We're going to open up with a big old splash page of Warblade. Warblade has been training with a guild that features people basically that are like him. We're finding out that a few of the Wildcats have been descended from different kinds of races that are on Khera. We haven't gotten into whatever one that Reno's descended from, and I don't think we're actually going to. It's just that Reno has been training with him, and he's been discovering that he can do all sorts of neat stuff with all of his, melty blade powers. So his technique is a murder tree where he can apparently hold off entire regiments. The page itself, I don't know. There's okay stuff in here, but there's a lot that I'm not too big on. Like, for one thing, the expression on Warblade's face isn't too great. I imagine, since this is a murder tree, I imagine this is supposed to be him kind of sinking roots in. It doesn't really look like that. He just kind of looks like he's melting. And the textures on the blades, they're okay, I guess, for the most part. I don't know. It's not the best looking splash. It's not even particularly good stuff we've seen from Ryan Benjamin up until this point. I feel like he's done better already. This is very likely based off of an Alan Moore thumbnail, because, of course, we discussed that Alan Moore did that, where he would provide layouts along with a script for the artists. There's pages in here I'm not as sure on, but, this one, I think it's probably likely. And so Voodoo and Void are going to catch Warblade up on what has been going on so far. He's completely out of the loop, as I imagine Warblade often is. He's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, ironically. So Voodoo disappeared almost immediately after they first got processed when they arrived on the planet. Warblade was under the impression that she was out partying all night, like it's a paradise planet, and I guess Warblade sees her as a ditzy party girl. So yeah, I guess that makes some sense. And turned out she spent the night in a Daemonite ghetto. Reno is confused and kind of thinks that's horse shit. He's like, what are Daemonites even doing on Khera? Like with the war and everything, should we let somebody know that this is happening? And they're like, no, they already know. The war has been over for 200 goddamn years. Just nobody bothered to tell us because Earth was too far away and considered too remote a territory. And Voodoo's going to break it down, what she heard from the Daemonite matron that she spent the night with, which is that while the war was on, the Daemonites were trying to keep up with the Kherans' advances in technology, but basically they managed to bankrupt themselves trying to keep up. So incorporating some contemporary politics, really, at the time, in 1995, like that's kind of similar to the fall of the USSR, as far as I understand it. So as the Daemonites started to lose control, there were shortages and food riots, and they eventually had no choice but to just surrender. And then Khera imposed this crippling war debt on Daemon and executed nearly all the Daemonite nobility after expensive war crime trials. The whole Daemonite empire was consumed by civil war. Some of the refugees were taken in by Khera. They live in shanty towns and eat the Kheran scraps. So naturally, this is all putting the Wildcats off a little bit, and they're not exactly sure what to do with it. The only real natives of this place from their team are Emp and Zealot, and they're both mixed up with their own political parties. So they can't really report anything to them because this is not really relevant information from their perspective. Like, they're being informed of it, only they're having it filtered through their respective organizations, so they're going to get this kind of twisted version stuck in their heads. And Void says, we have to talk to them. We'll wait for Maul to get back before we confront the pair of them. I wonder where he is. He was right there a minute ago. I guess that's him slipping away. I was kind of wondering why Ryan Benjamin decided to cover him in shadow, considering he's the big one. Nothing too impressive in terms of the art. I don't really think we're going to get very much that's impressive, really. There's some nice textures going on here and there, at least. This stance isn't too bad, although it would probably help a little bit if we could see the other foot behind this one here for this particular angle. Still not a fan of the way Ryan Benjamin's drawing Daemonites. This is probably the best shot, at least on the spread. But, I'm not even sure how much of that is just down to the colorist. At least he got, like a decent angle of Warblade from like a reverse 1/4 angle. All right, so naturally, speaking of Maul, we have to go check in on how Maul's doing now. And Maul is searching around on Khera because when they first arrived, he got handed some kind of map or flyer or something from some local Kheran that looked an awful lot like him. Had the purple skin and all that stuff. So he's trying to figure out exactly what this flyer is saying. They've all got these translator chips that have been implanted in them now. The thing is, they only work on spoken language. So he can't actually read the flyer he's been given. He's trying to kind of puzzle it out from symbols and whatever, I guess, pictures that are on the thing. But he manages to kind of stumble around and find his way to this kind of big tunnel down here. I suppose that's what that is. The part of the problem is that Alan Moore is focusing an awful lot on the backgrounds, and Ryan Benjamin kind of isn't really. Like he's kind of trying, but he's also trying to keep on schedule, I think. And backgrounds are something he just doesn't seem to have a whole lot of experience with at this time. So he's just kind of, trying to fake it a little. Just doing kind of like random shapes. It's like, that kind of looks like it could be some kind of architecture, I guess. And then you do like a silhouette in the background here of alien type looking buildings. So Maul sees a purple guy or maybe girl go in there and decides to follow. It turns out there's a whole bunch more of the purple people down there. And he kind of makes his way down, and then he's going to get shocked on the page turn. Again, not a whole lot really interesting going on here. Like, these are, when you get your writer doing your thumbnails for you, then you don't tend to get like the really dynamic looking pages out of that. Inking looks all right. All the cross hatching here looks nice. Interesting that there's no attempt at like edge lighting or anything down here, which is what I would kind of expect to see from somebody who's emulating Jim Lee an awful lot at this time. But, the figures look pretty good. The face is a little bit off, but, it's also Maul who has kind of an off-looking face. Anyway, really going heavy on those cheekbones. Okay, so Maul gets far enough underground where he finds this underground city. Or, at least we're told it's an underground city. We're going to get a whole double page spread here. The thing is that most of it is going to be Maul itself. He's kind of blocking us out. This is one of those ones where I wonder if Alan Moore was really behind the thumbnails on this, because this is pretty awkward looking, really. Like we were getting just like most of a double page spread of Maul's back here. And even that is heavily shadowed. And, like the description is like, the cave is vast, bigger than any that I've seen on Earth, and every surface has been used for housing its huge mauve inhabitants. Giant stalactite towers drip from the cavern's ceiling far above, while the enormous stalag mansions rise to meet them from below, sequined with lights and windows. Though it's big and beautiful and eerie, it looks less like something out of Blake than the designs of Piranesi. Those disturbing drawings that he made, colossal prisons buried far below the reach of daylight. And like we're getting a pretty good description of what Maul's seeing. We're just not really seeing it. So, again, for a young guy who probably doesn't have a whole lot of experience drawing backgrounds, this is just kind of a tough sell. Like, this is a tough spread to have to draw. I mean, he does okay, I think, with the buildings he is trying to draw here, where they just look like weird kind of, I don't know, like oddly shaped statues. And we go, okay, those are weird underground buildings then, I guess. So he keeps walking further through, and Maul is kind of enthralled by everything he finds. So, he sees just like the purple people everywhere, and like every single shade of purple, apparently, although we only really get the one, but that's all right. All the men have the horns that Maul has on his back. None of the women do. So that settles that argument. There was a question a while back about whether Maul's horns were part of his costume or not on one of the live streams. So no, they are part of him, I guess. And he's checking out the local fashions. And I guess he shrinks down, but he forgot to shrink his head, because that's way too big for this body here. See the tiny pecs? Pecs should go down to like where the bottom of his rib cage is here. And as he's looking around, a big purple ass cheek speaks and says, "You came then." And this is the girl that Maul saw up top. This is Glingo, or Glinglo. She says Glinglo here. Later it's Glingo, so I don't know. And Maul's super excited to talk to this girl, because he's got a thing going where it's just like, these giant muscly purple women are just like super attractive to him, which makes some sense. And Glingo starts talking about cold eyes, and Maul's like, "Oh, is that what you guys call Kirans?" And she's like, "No, we're the Kirans. We're the native Kirans. The cold eyes came from space millennia ago, migrating from their own planet, which was dying. And they took ours over, and they just kind of shoved us down in the caves." So Maul figures out that she's basically, like campaigning for like purple rights. This seems to be a major ongoing concern, even if this did happen, as she says, millennia ago. Like they're still trying to change things, which is good. It doesn't seem to be getting them anywhere though. And as Maul's talking to the girl, her brother comes up, accompanied by a couple of his flunkies by the looks of it, and calls Maul a puppy, which apparently is their version of yuppie, only with purple in front. So this is Baxa, and Baxa is apparently a representative of an extremist faction of the liberation forces. So they're freedom fighters. And he doesn't like the fact that some off-worlder is talking to his sister. So what he's going to do is he's going to challenge Maul. And Glingo's like, you don't need to do that. Just back off, man. Maul's like, no, that's okay. If he wants a challenge, we can, kind of roughhouse a little bit. That's fine. I'm used to roughhousing. Tough pages to draw. It's mostly just talking heads. That's never particularly fun, and it's kind of hard to get to make it interesting unless you're somebody like Kevin Maguire, who was drawing a few issues ago. I wonder if there was an understanding that Kevin Maguire was meant to draw more of this, and maybe Alan Moore started leaning in that direction for the scripts, and then that just kind of fell apart for some. I have no idea. But, like the one full body pose he does get ends up looking kind of weak. These faces are interesting, at least. They're kind of cartoony, and he's making an effort to make them look different from each other. So good on him on that one. So yeah, Maul's like, okay, so what are we going to be like fighting with? So I imagine he's expecting like American Gladiator Q-tips or something. And turns out that the way that the native Kirans, the Titananthropes, fight is like a bullfight, essentially, because they got the giant horns on their back, so they just charge at each other. Knocks Maul on his ass. Maul responds by growing, because of course he does. That's the thing that he does when he's in a fight. The only problem, of course, is that he's facing people who are like him and can do the same thing. So Baxa here grows to meet him, which kind of throws Maul off, particularly at this size, because he's getting kind of stupid. But yeah, no, fun pages here at least. This is a pretty nice dynamic shot here. I kind of like this panel here, really. It's a little bit of an awkward angle, I guess, for Baxa here, but, I feel like he got some pretty good stuff going on with the torso. And I like all the stretchy stuff going on in Maul's neck here. That looks great. So evidently, Baxa is just as good at fighting when he's giant size, at least among people of, like his own kind, as he is at regular size. Maul's instinct, which is just about all he has at this point, because his intellect has just completely disappeared almost, is to just keep getting bigger, because naturally, when he's dumb, he figures bigger's better. But he's just small enough, apparently, that there's a little bit of, just intelligence in there going, you know what, wait a minute, I need to shrink back down and actually strategize this. So, Baxa comes running at him again. Baxa has the same thing going on where he gets big, he gets stupid. So when Maul shrinks, he can't really comprehend that anybody would do that. I imagine that's not part of their usual fight. Either they charge at each other or they grow and charge at each other, and then they keep trying to match each other. So Maul shrinks down, and something happens here. It's not very clear. It looks like he dives between Baxa's legs, and then maybe Baxa trips over his own feet and trying to get him and falls down, and then the fight's over. Not very clear there, but, you get the basic idea, at least, of what's supposed to be going on. The actual fight stuff, again, it's not super great. So maybe, again, Alan Moore's laying that stuff out. Maybe the best thing on here is when Baxa lands on Maul here, and the panels underneath kind of shatter, like the tops of them do. That looks pretty cool. So, having fallen down, yeah, Baxa has apparently lost. Maul kind of tries to apologize. Glingo's like, no, that's okay. He needed to be taken down a peg. And besides, she's kind of happy that he won. And, it turns out that the thing that they've been fighting over was whether or not Maul gets Glingo. And now he does. And yeah, she takes his hand and kisses his knuckles. And yeah, it don't look great. I'm not sure if she's supposed to be not great looking. You kind of get the impression that she's supposed to have like a pretty square jaw, maybe kind of a large brow going on. The extra lines here on the face don't help too much, as well as the pucker lines. She does kind of look like she's like 50 years old. But at the same time, she's an alien race, and, he's seeing things differently. Like, this still appeals to him. Like, she's like beautiful to him, right? So, as far as Maul's concerned, this is all cool. This is all worked out well. So after the fight, Maul's going to head back up to the surface and, take in the sights again. And he's just having a great day now. Heads back to the quarters, and he's all excited. He's telling them about this awesome day he had, where he beat up a dude and won a girl. And the other Wildcats are just kind of still reeling a little bit from, the knowledge that they just have no reason to be here, and this place kind of sucks. And that is going to be the end of the original Wildcats portion of our story. I went for a little while, like 16 pages, so pretty close to a full issue. I'd say none of the art was too great. We didn't really advance any kind of story stuff. We just kind of got into some of the lore of the planet, and we gave Maul something to do, which usually does not happen. So, hey, I think it all kind of worked out. All right, so now we got to check in on the replacement Wildcats. And what they're going to do is they're going to break into the Church of Gort. And it's explained what the Church of Gort is. I'm not sure if this particular story, because I've read most of these before in a trade paperback for the Alan Moore Wildcats run. I'm not sure if this story was included, because this doesn't seem familiar to me at all. I've had people saying how much they love the Church of Gort stuff, and I've always been kind of like, Did they really talk about that? Maybe they didn't. I just missed it because it wasn't reprinted for some reason. Or I've just completely forgotten it. Who knows? We're finding out about it now anyway. So the place they've broken into is a cyborg graveyard because there have been so many cyber people running around that a clandestine church has been founded around them, and this is their vault. And they just kind of make their way through. You get the feeling they're trying to be sneaky, but like they don't get along very well. Like, but not, in that brigade kind of way where you get the impression that they're all just assholes who cannot possibly function in a team. They're trying to function as a team, and they just keep kind of squabbling. In the last issue, when Harm died, it was because Max Cash killed him, kind of at the urging of Tau. So Savant's kind of giving him shit over that, and Max Cash naturally he's trying to defend himself. Only now they got to shut up because they're managing to break into the ceremony here. So this is Jason Johnson, was it? Yeah. Okay, and I think this is going to be a little bit better than the stuff we got from Ryan Benjamin earlier. So this is the funeral for Harm. So we've got Attica and Slag. Slag gets a big old suit over his molten lava form, complete with a smiley face tie and everything. That's nice. We got a big scaffolding cross in the background here. And we've also got, what is this guy's name? He says it at the end here. Yeah, Death Trap. This is a Stormwatch villain, at least as far as I've seen. He showed up in Stormwatch #1, and I guess for a little bit before that in Image #0. That was probably his first appearance, I guess. But he's paying his respects to, another fallen supervillain, I suppose. Even Attica's got a little tie and the little dress shirt placeholder thing there. That looks great. And we're going to get our cyber priest here, who's going to give Harm his last rites. So it's though known to all the world as Harm, his close friends called him Chuck. Born Charles Sweeney in Cleveland, 1946, he had one childish dream. He wanted to weigh 1,500 pounds with ground-to-air bazookas in his shoulders. That dream came true, but now it's over. Chuck has been recalled by that eternal quality control where we shall all one day be tested. In case you couldn't tell, the Cyber Priest is my favorite part of this by a fairly wide margin. It's thou knowest, Gort, our hidden files, accept the wreckage of thy servant Harm, that he may be alloyed with thee. And Slag and Attica are kind of murmuring to each other during the proceedings, just Chuck? His name was Chuck? I only thought he was Harm. I had no idea, man. And Attica's no, me neither. I didn't even know he had a personality. And then they realize that they're there with Harm's widow. She attended too. And they're, oh shit, I'm sorry. We shouldn't be talking about him. I'm sure he was a great guy and stuff. And she's no, it's okay. Chuck really wasn't the same after he had his frontal lobe replaced. And the Cyber Priest is going to finish up here. Keep him safe in thy divine encryption systems, that he may be at peace within thy glorious downtime. I'm not sure why the priest is Thermian, but he seems to be. Kind of a mix of a Thermian and the Eric Idle priest out of Holy Grail. Anyway, while the priest is wrapping up here, there's an earthquake starting up. Before we get there, this double page splash is all pretty good, really. There's some awkwardness here and there, but there's enough fun stuff that you don't give a shit. Slag in a giant suit is great. Attica here looks pretty good, top to bottom. He does look fairly close to, a Jim Lee drawing of Attica. That is one of the things, is that both of these guys, Jason Johnson and Ryan Benjamin, seem to be getting influenced very heavily by Jim Lee, trying to draw as much like him as they can. And I've said it before, that's how you get work at Image in 1995. It does mean if you're not paying attention, you might think this whole thing is being drawn by one guy. So anyway, there's an earthquake underneath, and then the Wildcats burst forth to have a fight at this funeral. Not a whole lot of Jim Lee in here. If anything, I don't know, with Jason Johnson, every once in a while I get the feeling he's kind of emulating Tom Rainey a little bit. Or I don't know if him and Tom Rainey are buddies at all. I know Tom Rainey does take over Stormwatch at one point, and I think he's working for Wildstorm at least a little bit before that. I don't know, just something about the line work. Yeah, it definitely seems like there's just a little bit of similarity with Tom Rainey's style there. So they're going to get into a fight. The supervillains really aren't ready to go, and they're kind of offended that the heroes are attacking here, which is a little bit funny because that's kind of the reverse of what happened in Stormwatch #1, really. Attica and Harm and Slag weren't in on that, but Death Trap was. Some nice looking fight stuff, fairly clear what's going on, although there is just kind of, these do seem like very random, separate panels here. But decent looking stuff, and it's nice to know what's happening in a fight. Savant tried to take a swing at Slag, and I guess she was able to do something anyway. But then he slaps her off. Majestic is, yeah, wailing away on Death Trap here. Well, who was going after Attica? I guess that was Ladytron, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. And it's funny because Attica is actually protecting Harm's widow here, and like trying to like hit on her a little bit too, which is maybe a little bit bad taste at the funeral. So Max is looking after the other attendants, just making sure they don't get involved. He can't really do a whole lot. He doesn't want to get between Ladytron and Attica. I mean, I imagine particularly because Attica is so close to Harm's widow, who didn't do anything in this. Majestic's got Death Trap, so I mean, that's well in hand. Death Trap is severely outmatched there. So the only real threat is Slag, and he can't shoot Slag. I mean, he can, but it won't do anything. And he kind of realizes, we had another guy here, like that Tao guy. Where the fuck even is he? And turns out Tao is up in the control booth. So the deal with what they were going to do at the funeral here was they were going to melt Harm down. I guess they got most of them in the smelting bucket here, or that's what they were eventually going to do. So what he does is he positions the smelting bucket over Slag and just kind of lets that go. So he gets encased in molten metal. Yeah, that was Harm in there. Okay, yeah, I say they'd melted him to cast his own grave marker. So that's what they usually do. Yeah, like this is a pretty fun page here. Like maybe not entirely clear what's happening. It wouldn't be too bad to have like the smelting pot like inside the frame here. But it is all explained through the dialogue, so I guess that's okay. And we get this fun kind of goopy panel border. That looks pretty good. Very thick border on that too. So yeah, the Wildcats have won, and they're going to take everybody into custody. So this is the new mandate. They're going to go out and they're going to be aggressive. They're going to go attack supervillains at, like inappropriate times. And as they take Death Trap in, he's like, you guys have no idea what you just started. And he's, like mostly right. None of these guys here know what's going on, really. They don't know what to expect. Tao does. But, we're not really getting into that just yet. Later on during this story. And that's going to wrap this thing up. We also get Voodoo poster by Travis Charest. That looks very good. Not super exciting, but that's okay. That's just kind of the kind of stuff Travis Charest is doing right now. And, there's an ad for Cybernary. This is Cybernary, guys. It looks fine. Like, this doesn't look like a bad comic at all, really. The expression on her face is kind of weird there. I mean, the biggest problem this thing has is that the artist isn't Nick Manabat. And, like, you can't really blame him for that. It'd be nice if there was two, but what can you do? All right. And what is this? A Gen 13 Max crossover. Drawn by Tom Coker. Okie dokie. I mean, that looks like it might be interesting. Anyway, though, that's going to be it for Wildcats number 24. Pretty good issue. We're taking it very slow with the old school Wildcats team. We've already spent, I don't even know, like 3 issues just kind of getting used to the background of being on Khera and trying to build this, like growing sense of unease about just what the state of things are. Getting Maul involved with the Titananthropes, getting Voodoo involved with the Damonites, and next issue we're going to move on to, I believe, Spartan, or in the next couple of issues anyway. And back on Earth, yeah, we're advancing things a fair bit quicker with the newer Wildcats team. It's an interesting attempt to try and build, like a whole bunch of characters, really, because like the old school guys, like they're established, but like they still haven't really ever had developed personalities very much. So Alan Moore's kind of going to focus on that. These new guys, I mean, like they're very new. Most of these have been introduced for the first time just a couple of issues ago. So Alan Moore needs to get you on their side immediately. So it's fight after fight after fight with them, and trying to get some characterization along the way. But get a whole bunch of cool moments. So you're like, oh yeah, no, I like that guy. He pulled that cool move back in that issue there. And yeah, it's like 2 different ways of trying to build up a superhero team for your audience. It's interesting stuff from a storytelling perspective. So next issue, I believe, it's issue 25. I think they're going to try and go a bit more all out in terms of escalating things. So that'll be fun to check out. But for this one anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks very much for watching, guys. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Helps with all the algorithm stuff. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And if you really want to help out, in the description, there's a link to my Patreon. And if you go subscribe there, that'll give you access to everything I do. So all sorts of videos, everything to do with the Blood Force comic, including the Blood Force comic. Also in the description, there's a link to the merch store. You can follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, because commissions are open. So yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.